Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure and honor to speak here at the 10th anniversary of this conference. I think it's extremely important these days that there is persistence, that you start something and you stay on it. And I think the 10th anniversary is already showing that. So my congratulations to Hugo and to Steve and to all those who were part of this journey. And if I just may add, Steve Denning has been very close to the Drucker Forum basically since its inception. So we really have a strong relationship, and I'm very glad that this also led into the partnership that we are demonstrating today. The title, as you can see, is quite ambitious, right? So normally when people think about management, they think about, you know, how do you improve profits? How do you make a firm more productive and things like that? And the managers are those who are implementing this with force, with a vengeance almost. So management doesn't always have a good name. Yeah, I see that in many discussions. And I want to take you on a quick journey where I make the case how important management really is. And in this case, I'm not on my own, because Peter Drucker made it in the first place, because he said this is a fundamental role, not just in business, but in society. And I think that gives us a different perspective. It's vital, as he said, for a functioning society. If I take for a moment a historic perspective, historic for the last 70, 80 years, I think we can observe that management contributed significantly to a very positive development. We had after the Second World War, overall, we had an amazing development, and we have improved many things, and we've improved the conditions of life in many parts of the world, and management has had a major part in this. But today, when we, as Steve said, when we look out of the window, we may see a different picture. And I would like to use this famous iconic term, Houston, we have a problem. Yeah? Sadly, that's the situation today. And it's not just me saying it, but these days a big report has been issued by the European Commission. Mario Draghi was working, I think almost a year, on the future competitiveness of Europe. He did an analysis, and his conclusions are rather alarming. So if you have time, take a look into it in detail. There are very interesting data in it. And the only comment I will make now, because this would be a presentation in its own right, the only comment I would make now is that it's very interesting and characteristic that the main measure that is suggested in this report, I think, and it gets a lot of focus, obviously, is that additional significant funding is required. 750 to 800 billion a year to solve the problems of Europe. And the problems that Europe has is not just Europe. The Western world has similar challenges. So the only question I would ask from a management perspective in this context, how well will it work if you want to solve the problems that you have in a complex situation and where you are already spending huge sums of money if you add additional money? I think that needs to be thought through. Can you solve it with throwing more money on the issues, or should you think more about how do I manage what I already have? That's a discussion I think we might have with with Mr. Draghi and with the European Commission if they are ready to engage with us. I mean, anyway, despite the problems today, we had this very remarkable journey, and it was due to not only to management, but as Gary Hamel put it, management can be considered as the most important, or one of the most important, social innovations of the 20th century. It made definitely a difference. It matters. Management matters. And when I say management matters, it doesn't mean it matters to business only. I think I'm very glad that a group from the military is here, because they are also cited by Peter Drucker often. This is one of the group who has exercised management ideas for a long, long time. And so management is relevant not only for business, but for all organizations and institutions who are essential in society. And that doesn't mean they all use the same type of management. There are differences, obviously. It depends on the context. There's no one size fits all. But as the military shows, business management can also learn in various areas from military management. So we need to make sure that these connections are being built, and this is why it's very, very positive that you have this connection established here. I mean, in our society, what shows very clearly when I talk about management in various organizations and institutions, it's like, you know, they are like in a concert. They should play together. Why should they play together? Because a lot is about value creation and innovation. Do you want to focus this process primarily on companies, and everybody else is watching or doing their own thing and have their own ideas about how to regulate others? So no, it must be a concert playing according to a tune. And the problem we have today, ladies and gentlemen, I'm convinced, and I cannot give you the detailed proof, but there are a lot of facts around that we are still very much mired in the industrial age thinking. So many companies, and also our whole mindset goes in this direction. Industrial age meaning centralization, top-down, command control, micromanagement in many. If there's a problem, people tend to micromanage. If there's a crisis, bureaucracy, right? That also has a long tradition. I'm not saying you don't need bureaucracy. There are areas where you need it. But if it becomes pervasive in areas where you should be agile and nimble, then it will not work. So the big question now is, I think we are all confronted with, should we throw the old system overboard? Is it time to relinquish management? Sometimes we call it management 1.0 as a notion for the industrial age type of management. And here I can say, standing again on Peter Drucker's shoulders, we say, no, this is not the point. It's not about throwing everything overboard, but it's about finding the right balance between continuity and change. That was Drucker's point. Drucker was against revolutions. He said revolutions always produce the very negative side effects, or even main effects, right? Unintended consequences, because everybody wants to do good. But so our position is continuity and change. Let's learn from what we have, and then let's renew it, and in particular, let's change the way how we think about it. That's a very difficult exercise, to change the way to change the mindset, right? That's one of the very challenging things, and some people might talk, because once you change the mindset and you change the paradigm, you are talking about reframing something. So you may ask, how did we get to this notion of next management? Because there was something like industrial age, and why is it now next management, and why is this the time? We thought at the Drucker Forum and with our community that has grown over 15 years now. We have the 16th Drucker Forum this year. And what we are really proud of is the community that includes people like Steve, but management thinkers from around the world and more practitioners. We thought to go granular, as it's happening now to some degree. Each practice that changes, okay, now we have the latest management focus, maybe on talent management, and the latest one there may be on supply chain management, et cetera, et cetera. All these things, of course, keep changing. But what is missing is a bigger framework as we move into this new time where we all believe we have to make some fundamental changes. This is why we thought about this bigger framework, and this is why we started also with the question of the mindset and to overcome in some way the industrial age mindset. Now let me exercise this. So this led us to what we call the guiding principles. And I must always say it's work in progress. And you will be invited to contribute for those of you who want. But we started with these big guiding principles where we say, okay, what are the things that are in common, maybe even across organizations, businesses, public sector, military, NGOs, etc. So innovation more than efficiency. We had this age of efficiency. It was tremendously important. But today, it's not enough. We cannot just go for efficiency. There's much more at stake. Ecosystems, more than single institutions. I mentioned it before. We have the challenge is even if you are doing a good job in an organization, but if your surrounding is harassing you with terrible regulations that stop you from innovating. And when I'm talking about that, there are really examples where you can show that. You still cannot achieve what you should achieve for society. So it's important that ecosystems and the players in ecosystem understand their role and understand their responsibility when it comes to value creation and innovation. That's not the case today. So long-term more than short-term, not much to say. But in Drucker was most, let's say, he was really sad and angry about the way how Wall Street brought short-termism into the picture. And in certain areas we are overcoming it, but it's still a big issue to have this longer-term perspective and to have it reflected in the metrics, in the measurements, in the way how analysts look at things. I think that's very important. Human augmentation more than automation, don't need to comment a lot. Think about artificial intelligence where people say, well, it's now replacing the human being, right? I think that needs in-depth discussion, and I'm sure you will discuss a lot about artificial intelligence and agility, etc. Management as an art more than a science. Another big area. Management has been almost pressed into a situation where it must consider itself as a science. This is how the business school world works these days, and this is how the mechanics around it work. You must publish in certain journals, right? You must be able to show, and the journals are peer-reviewed, and most people who read it are the peers. So much of the research is going nowhere, right? So if we go back to management as something significantly more than a science, because it has this human component, it has the psychological component, etc., I think we can win a lot. Reality grounded, I think that's where you are also based, because your movement, I think, sprung also from the clarity that, it's when you look at reality, you cannot work in a complex world with the rigidity we have in many places. That's very, very clear. And ideology is the other point. We are currently driven by a lot of ideological thinking where people know exactly what should be, what the world should look like. And those who are in reality say, no, I know I must explore reality every day. And it's changing, and the context is changing. I cannot apply a fixed picture of the world. And I think this is one of the key things to overcome if we want to make real progress. And that goes into politics. So when I'm talking about next management, I'm also talking about how should politicians understand this in a new way and not have it as an afterthought. Politicians today think they make a new regulation and it's well defined, it will happen. But that it's happening at the end bottom up in the organizations that produce the value, try to produce the value, they don't take this into account. So in this sense, I think we need this. And self-renewal was one of the key tenets of Peter Drucker when he thought about organizations up to the state level. He said, once they lose the ability to self-renew, they are doomed. They are doomed. So you need to have the capacity of self-renewal as part of your focus, right? So just quickly walking through a few things. What are we going to do about it? Of course, this is a huge task. And no, believe me, we don't think we can do it on our own. The Drucker Forum has the legitimacy through Peter Drucker, but if there is no major coalition, it cannot work. So, of course, as Steve said, taking stock of progress in the practices and in the discipline of management. What do we have? Where do we start from? Where are the good things? Where are the things that should rather change? Uncovering what C.K. Prahalad called the next practices. That's important because these are the weaker signals, but we can find them together. Defining the guiding principles, what I just showed you, involving progressive organizations and progressive movements like yours. This is why I'm very happy and proud about the partnership that we are starting with this forum. Building the wider community, we have started to do that, and focusing initially, mainly, because you cannot do everything at once, on private and public sector. I think there is most leverage if we can find ways how we can move forward. How to do it from our side, we have made this very significant change. We have, as I say, a new think tank is born, advancing next management. And the Vienna Center for Management Innovation has already been announced 2 years ago, but now we sort of reposition it as a think tank with a multi-year agenda, because next management is obviously not a conference theme of one conference and then it's gone. So it's a conference, it's about exploration, about governance, how we move forward in community building, and it's tightly interlinked with the Drucker Forum, because the Drucker Forum is the platform. It has annual topics which fit into these ideas of next management. And of course, it can be our megaphone in some way. And we have a new executive director just announced these days. He was Chief Academic Officer of Halt International Business School, Dr. Johann Roos. So we are very proud to have him on board to help us advance this agenda. So if you are interested, please, since you will get, just send us a yes, because then we keep you as part of the community and keep you informed and involved at some point, if you are interested. Now, we use the annual Drucker Forum to sort of show chapters of the next management. This year we have the next knowledge work on November 14 and 15. It's close already, but some of you may still join us. We will give to this group special conditions. So, and this will be known via Hugo. And so you see a few people you know, but you don't see on this list Steve Denning, for example, who will be one of the speakers of the conference, or Kurt Carlson, who is an old friend and since many years, reminding us that it's all about value creation, right? So we need this subject. But you will know a number of names like Amy Edmondson, Kevin Nolan, Adrian Woodridge, Bloomberg now, Gillian Tett from the Financial Times, et cetera, et cetera. I won't take you through all this. But where does this lead us? And this is my point about the journey I wanted to take you through. Our really close friend and supporter, Clayton Christensen, who sadly passed away several years ago, he took up one of the Drucker ideas in a famous article, How Will You Measure Your Life? And he said, if management is practiced well, given its impact on society, it's a noble calling, right? He said even most noble of professions. It's a noble calling. And this is our appeal to the young generation. I think the young generation currently want to change the world. They want to make the world a better place. But in many cases, they are misled about how to do it. This is one of the big levers to make the world a better place. So in this sense, let's work together and try to make progress in this direction. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you. Please stay here just for 1 second. When it comes to value creation and innovation, Dr. Richard Straub, you've definitely helped us to think about reframing our mindsets. A call to action to all of you to remember this as we go through the day. A round of applause again. Thank you so, so much. Wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful. Again, remember, you're going to be growing on this and helping with this deep dive of information.